Soldiers, the time has come. Form it up.
You'll fail, human said. The alien princess had no idea who she was facing. The throne room of the Valorian Empire gleamed with crystalline walls that reflected the soft purple light of the binary star system outside. Princess Kess sat upon her elevated seat, her tall frame draped in robes of deep silver that matched her luminescent skin. Her eyes, large and intelligent, scanned the chamber with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. 300 years of conquest had taught her people, the Valoronians, that they were superior in every measurable way. Their intellect surpassed all known species. Their technology was centuries ahead of any rival civilization. Their military strategy had never failed. So when the alarm sounded that morning, Kess felt only mild curiosity. "A vessel has entered our space, Your Highness," her chief advisor, Commander Vex, announced as he entered the chamber. His skin rippled with patterns of concern. "It is small, primitive. The reading suggests it comes from the Sol system." Kess leaned forward slightly. "The humans? Those organic creatures with such short lifespans?" "Yes, Princess. They request an audience with you directly. They claim they wish to speak of matters of great importance." A faint smile crossed Kess's face. She had read about humans in the historical databases. They were fragile beings who lived for mere decades compared to her species' natural lifespan of 500 years. They had no natural weapons, no advanced biological enhancements, and yet they had somehow survived on their small planet despite numerous catastrophes. How they managed to do anything remarkable was beyond her understanding. "Bring their leader to the throne room," Kess commanded. "Let us see what this primitive species wants." 20 minutes later, the great doors of the chamber slid open. The human who entered was remarkable only in his ordinariness. He was shorter than Kess by nearly a meter, with a darker skin tone and features that seemed almost crude compared to the refined beauty of the Valorian people. He wore a simple uniform, unmarked by rank or distinction. What caught Kess's attention, however, was his expression. He did not appear afraid. "Welcome," Kess said, her voice carrying the weight of authority that had subdued countless alien delegations. "I am Princess Kess of the Valorian Empire. You are in the presence of the greatest civilization in this sector. Speak your purpose, human, and speak quickly. Your time is limited." The human stepped forward with an easy confidence that seemed almost foolish. He bowed slightly, a gesture Kess recognized as a sign of respect from lower species, but his eyes remained steady and unbroken. "My name is Captain Marcus Chen," he said, his voice clear and measured. "I have come to propose an alliance between our peoples." Kess could not help but laugh. The sound echoed through the chamber like crystalline bells breaking. "An alliance? You come before the Valorian Empire, a civilization that has conquered 17 star systems, and you propose we treat you as equals? You will fail, human. Your species will fail just as all others have failed before us." Marcus did not flinch at her words. Instead, he stepped closer, his dark eyes meeting hers directly. "With respect, Princess, you have not yet heard what I have to offer." "Very well," Kess said, settling back into her throne. She gestured to Commander Vex. "Grant this human 1 hour. Let us hear how a fragile creature from a backwater world thinks he can benefit the greatest empire in existence." Marcus began to speak, and what he said was unexpected. He did not offer her resources or technology. He did not promise her military advantage or territorial expansion. Instead, he spoke about something far more abstract: adaptation. He explained how humans as a species had faced extinction countless times. Ice ages had nearly wiped them out. Volcanic catastrophes had darkened their skies. Diseases had swept through their populations. Famines had ravaged their lands. And yet, each time, humans had found ways to survive. They had developed new tools, new strategies, new ways of thinking. "Your civilization is powerful," Marcus said, his voice calm and respectful. "But power that never faces challenge becomes stagnant. Your species has conquered easily because you have never truly struggled. You have never had to innovate in the face of extinction. You have never had to work together with your enemies to survive. Don't burn up shoulders, and do not wait until the dog is passed. Continuing, but something more dangerous, genuine interest." Marcus spoke for the next hour about human history. He told her stories of wars that had nearly destroyed his entire species, yet from those wars came new philosophies and technologies. He described famines that had forced humans to develop better agriculture. He explained how diseases had taught them about medicine and biology. He painted a picture of a species that had been forged in the furnace of constant struggle. "We are not asking to be treated as your equals in power," Marcus concluded. "We are asking to be recognized for something your empire needs, the ability to survive impossible odds, to find solutions where none seem to exist. To never give up, no matter how hopeless the situation appears." When Marcus finished, the chamber fell silent. Kes sat motionless on her throne, her mind working through what she had heard. She had been prepared to dismiss this human as foolish, to send him back to his primitive world with a warning never to return. But his words had planted a seed of doubt in her mind. "You say we lack struggle," Kes said slowly. "That our power has made us weak. I say that your power has protected you from the very thing that would make you truly strong," Marcus replied. "Partnership with those who think differently. Cooperation with those who see solutions you cannot imagine." Kes stood from her throne and descended the steps toward the human. "Commander Vex," she said without taking her eyes from Marcus, "I want our military strategists to run simulations, pit our best commanders against human tactics. Let us see if this fragile creature's words have any truth to them." "Yes, Princess," Vex replied, though his tone suggested he thought this was a waste of time. "And Captain Chen," Kes said, studying the human's face carefully, "you will remain here as our guest. We have much to discuss, you and I. Your species, it seems, has an interesting perspective on survival." For the first time, Marcus smiled. "Thank you for listening, Princess. I believe this is the beginning of something neither of our peoples has experienced before." As Kes watched the human being escorted to the guest quarters, she found herself wondering if she had made a terrible mistake in dismissing him so quickly. Or perhaps, just perhaps, she had made the wisest decision of her reign. The age of the Valorian Empire, it seemed, was about to change. 3 days had passed since Captain Marcus Chen arrived at the Valorian throne room. In that time, Princess Kes had made an unprecedented decision. She had granted him access to the military strategy chamber, a place where no outsider had ever been permitted. The chamber was vast and cold, filled with holographic displays showing the Valorian Empire's greatest military victories. Hundreds of conquered worlds floated in three-dimensional projection, each one a testimony to Valorian superiority. Kes stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by her most elite military commanders. Their skin rippled with patterns of anticipation. They had been ordered by their princess to run combat simulations against human tactics, and they had done so with confidence. Now they gathered to present their findings. Commander Vex stepped forward, his voice steady and assured. "The simulations are complete, Your Highness. We have tested human military strategy against our own in 17 different scenarios. The results are clear and decisive. In all 17 cases, Valorian forces achieved victory." Kes nodded, though something in her expression suggested she was waiting for more. "And the margin of victory?" she asked. "In most cases, overwhelming," another commander named Zal replied. "Our superior intellect allowed us to predict human movements. Our advanced weapons technology made their defense nearly impossible. The humans would require a 10-to-1 numerical advantage to pose any real threat to our forces." A satisfied murmur ran through the gathered commanders. Kes raised her hand for silence, and all eyes turned to her. "Commander Vex, tell me, in all 17 simulations, were there any moments of particular difficulty? Any tactics that surprised you?" Vex hesitated, and that hesitation was enough to tell Kes what she needed to know. "There were unexpected approaches in some scenarios," he admitted carefully, "but they ultimately led nowhere. Our forces adapted and defeated them." "Show me," Kes commanded. The holographic display shifted, and suddenly a battle scenario unfolded before them. It showed a human force, vastly outnumbered by a Valorian fleet. The humans could not match their opponents in firepower or speed, but what they did was remarkable. They sacrificed their smaller vessels in coordinated patterns that appeared random at first, but created gaps in the Valorian defensive formation. Then, through those gaps, they struck at the enemy's supply lines, not their battleships. This is nothing, Zhao said dismissively. Attacking supply lines is a basic strategy. We simply rerouted our resources. But at what cost? A quieter voice asked from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. It was Marcus Chen, standing calmly in the shadows where he had been observing the entire presentation. Kes had invited him to watch, curious to see how he would react to his own tactics being tested. The human is right to speak up, Kes said, gesturing for Marcus to come forward. Explain your meaning, Captain. Marcus stepped into the light of the holographic display. His small frame seemed almost comical compared to the tall Valorians surrounding him. Yet his presence commanded attention. Your commander said they rerouted resources, but in doing so, they weakened their front lines. Look at the simulation again. Watch what happens 3 minutes after the supply line attack. The hologram reset and played again. This time, with Marcus's guidance, they all saw it. The Valorian forces, having shifted resources to protect their supplies, had created a vulnerability in their main formation. The human ships exploited this weakness, not with a direct assault, but by moving their remaining forces through the weakened point and striking at the command vessel. It is still just a minor tactical adjustment, Vex said. But his voice was less certain now. No, Marcus said calmly. It is something much more important. It shows that humans do not fight to match your strength. We fight to expose your weakness. We cannot outthink you individually, but we can think differently. We can see problems from angles you do not expect because survival has taught us to see problems in ways you have never had to. Kes watched as her commanders exchanged uncomfortable glances. What Marcus was describing challenged their fundamental understanding of warfare. Show us more, Kes commanded. For the next 2 hours, Marcus walked through the simulations with the Valorian military commanders. In each one, he pointed out moments where human tactics succeeded not because they were superior, but because they were unexpected. Humans attacked from directions that made no strategic sense, used resources in ways that seemed wasteful, and coordinated movements that appeared chaotic at first but revealed hidden patterns of brilliant adaptation. By the end, even Commander Vex had to acknowledge something remarkable. In every single scenario, there had been a point where human forces could have achieved victory, not through superior technology or intellect, but through lateral thinking and willingness to sacrifice short-term advantages for long-term survival. This is impossible, Zal muttered. You're suggesting that primitive humans could defeat us? Not defeat, Marcus corrected gently, but survive. There is a difference. You defeat enemies. We survive them. Over enough time, survival beats victory every single time. Cass felt something shift in the room. The confidence that had filled the chamber moments before was cracking like ice under pressure. These commanders, who had never questioned their superiority, were beginning to understand that superiority was not the same as invincibility. Captain Chen, Cass said, her voice thoughtful. Your species has faced many enemies over your history? Many, Marcus confirmed. Far more than we could overcome with force alone. We have survived. Because we learned to adapt faster than our enemies could predict. We learned to find strength in unity with different peoples. We learned that survival is not about being strongest. It is about being most willing to change. A younger commander, one named Tallis, stepped forward. But surely your species must have natural advantages? Some biological strength we are not aware of? No, humans are physically weaker than most species we have encountered. We live shorter lives. We tire more easily. We are fragile and vulnerable. Our only advantage is that we refuse to accept that our limitations are permanent. We find ways around them. We build tools. We create alliances. We never stop trying, even when failure seems certain. This is meaningless data, he said, but his voice carried no conviction. The simulations show we would still win any real conflict. But Captain Chen has shown us something far more valuable than the simulations themselves. He has shown us that there are ways of thinking, ways of approaching problems that our civilization has never developed. Ways that come from struggle and survival rather than from superiority and ease. Cass approached Marcus, studying his face with new understanding. When you first arrived, I told you that you would fail. I still believe you will fail, Captain Chen, but perhaps not in the way I meant. Perhaps your failure will teach us more than any victory could. Marcus nodded respectfully. Then my journey here has already succeeded, Princess. As the commanders filed out of the chamber, murmuring among themselves in confused tones, Kess realized something that unsettled her deeply. Her empire's greatest weakness was not their technology or their military strength. It was their absolute certainty that they could never be challenged. And that certainty, Marcus had shown her, was the most dangerous illusion of all. Princess Kess spent the entire night in the Imperial Archives, something she had not done since her youth. The vast underground chamber held the complete historical records of the Valorian civilization. 500 years of documented progress, conquest, and achievement. But tonight, she was not reviewing her own people's history. Instead, she had requested access to human historical files, the ones Captain Marcus Chen had offered to share. What she discovered shook the foundations of everything she believed. The holographic displays showed Earth, the human homeworld, a planet that looked almost fragile compared to the mighty worlds the Valoroans had conquered. Yet the history that unfolded before Kess's eyes was a story of unimaginable struggle and equally unimaginable resilience. She watched as ice ages came and went, forcing humans to adapt or perish. She witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, each one destroyed by natural disaster, disease, or conflict, yet always followed by another civilization that learned from the previous one's mistakes. She saw famines that should have wiped out entire populations, yet somehow humans survived by developing new forms of agriculture. She observed plagues that killed millions, yet from those plagues came medical knowledge that saved billions more. But what truly captured Kess's attention was the wars. The Valorian Empire had conquered through military might, yes, but those conquests had been quick and decisive. The losing civilizations had simply accepted defeat and integrated into Valorian society. Human history was different. Then Hill fought wars that lasted for years, even decades. They fought not for conquest, but for survival. And more remarkably, they fought alongside enemies they had previously battled fiercely. One particular section of human history haunted Kess. It was called the Second Great War. Two massive human factions had fought each other across their entire planet, killing tens of millions of their own kind. The destruction was so complete that it nearly ended human civilization entirely. Yet what struck Kess most was what came after. Instead of one faction dominating the survivors, the two former enemies came together. They created new systems of cooperation. They shared knowledge. They built alliances that ensured no single faction could ever again plunge their world into such darkness. Kess realized something profound. Humans did not just survive difficult situations. They learned from them. Each catastrophe added layers to human understanding, new ways of thinking, new methods of cooperation. As dawn broke over the Valorian homeworld, Kess called for Captain Marcus Chen. He arrived in the archives an hour later, finding the princess surrounded by holographic displays of human history. She did not look up immediately, but when she did, Marcus saw something in her expression that surprised him. It was not anger or dismissal. It was awe. "I have read your history," Kess said quietly. "All of it, from the earliest records to your present day." "And what do you conclude?" Marcus asked carefully. "I conclude that I have been wrong," Kess said, and the words seemed to cost her something. "Not about Valorian superiority in technology or intellect. We are superior in those areas. But I have been wrong about what makes a civilization truly great." She gestured to the displays. "Your people have survived things that should have destroyed you utterly. Ice ages, plagues, wars, natural disasters, climate collapse. Yet each time, instead of becoming weaker, you became stronger, more adaptable, more capable of cooperation." Marcus watched as the princess walked slowly through the holographic timeline of human history. "I see something else," Kess continued. "Your species has never conquered another species. You have never created an empire like ours. And I believe I finally understand why. It is not because you lack the ability. It is because you understand something we do not." "What is that?" Marcus asked. "That survival itself is the greatest victory," Kess replied. "Not dominance, not conquest. not the subjugation of others, but the ability to endure, to adapt, to change, and to grow stronger through that change. She turned to face Marcus directly. My people have conquered 17 star systems. We have built the greatest military force in this sector. We have achieved technological marvels. And yet, in all of that, we have never truly struggled. We have never faced a situation where our standard solutions did not work. We have never been forced to think differently or to cooperate with those we might ordinarily dismiss. Kes moved closer to the human captain. Your civilization, despite being physically weaker and technologically less advanced, has created something we have never developed: the ability to survive anything, to find solutions in impossible situations, to make allies of former enemies, to learn from failure instead of being destroyed by it. Our history has been harsh, Princess, Marcus said. Many would call it tragic, but you were right. It has taught us to see problems differently. More than that, Kes said, her voice carrying a new certainty, it has taught you to never give up. I have read about your people facing extinction dozens of times, and yet you persisted, you adapted, you survived. Looking at the holographic images of Earth's history floating around them, my empire is built on the assumption that we are superior and therefore will always win, but that assumption has blinded us. We do not prepare for scenarios where our superiority is not enough. We do not develop backup plans or alternative strategies. We believe in our power so completely that we cannot imagine it failing. Kes's expression grew more intense. Humans, on the other hand, prepare for failure constantly. You expect difficulty. You plan for disaster. You see every problem as an opportunity to become stronger. It is the only way we have survived, Marcus confirmed quietly. I need to show this to my people, Kes said with sudden determination. I need them to understand what I have learned. Not that humans are superior, we are not, but that there is a form of strength that comes not from being the best, but from being willing to change, to adapt, to never accept defeat as permanent. She moved toward the chamber's exit, then stopped. You told me 3 days ago that I would fail, Captain Chen. I said you would fail, but I was measuring failure by the wrong standard. I was thinking of military defeat, territorial loss, conquest, but perhaps the greatest failure would be for my civilization to remain unchanged, unaware, incapable of growth. Is that what you have learned from my history? Marcus asked. Yes, Kes replied. And more. I have learned that true power is not about dominating others. It is about being able to face anything and emerge stronger. Your people, fragile as you are, possess a strength that our entire empire has never developed, and that is worth more than any number of conquered worlds. As they walked back toward the throne room together, Marcus realized that the princess had grasped something crucial. The real battle ahead would not be military. It would be ideological. Kes would have to convince her entire civilization to accept that their way of thinking, the way that had made them great, might also be limiting them. That would be a far greater challenge than any war. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Valorian Empire had never been more crowded. Every seat was filled with the most powerful figures in their civilization. Military commanders, government officials, scientific advisors, and the Council of Elders who had guided Valorian policy for the last century. Princess Kes stood at the center of the chamber, preparing to speak words that would either unite or shatter her entire civilization. Captain Marcus Chen stood to the side, watching the gathered Valorians with calm interest. He had been invited to attend, but not to speak. This moment belonged to the princess alone. Kes raised her hand, and the vast chamber fell silent. Her voice, when she spoke, carried the weight of authority and something more: genuine conviction. For 300 years, our civilization has believed in our absolute superiority, she began. We have conquered because we are stronger. We have dominated because we are smarter. We have built an empire because we are better than all other species in this sector. This belief has made us great. But I stand before you today to tell you that this same belief has made us blind. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Commander Vex leaned forward, his expression darkening with concern. I have spent the last days studying human history, Kes continued, her voice steady and clear. And what I have discovered has changed my understanding of what true strength means. Humans are not stronger than us. They are not smarter than us. Their technology is centuries behind our own. By every measure we use to define superiority, they are inferior. Zal stood up, his skin rippling with agitation. Then why do you speak of them as though they are worthy of our attention, Princess? They are beneath us. They are beneath us in power, Kes acknowledged. But they are above us in something far more important, the ability to survive. Humans have faced extinction countless times. They have endured ice ages that should have destroyed them. They have survived plagues that killed billions. They have fought wars so devastating that their entire civilization nearly collapsed. And yet, after each catastrophe, they emerged stronger. They learned. They adapted. They became more capable. Kes gestured to the holographic displays that now illuminated the chamber, showing scenes from human history. We have never faced true struggle. Our superiority has protected us from the very experiences that teach growth. When we face a problem, we solve it with superior intellect or overwhelming force. We have never been forced to find solutions in impossible situations. We have never been forced to cooperate with those different from ourselves. We have never experienced the kind of adversity that teaches resilience. Commander Vex stood now, his voice sharp and commanding. Princess, with respect, you are suggesting we learn from primitives? This is beneath the dignity of our people. The military simulations proved our superiority. The simulations proved we can defeat humans in direct conflict. Kes interrupted. But Captain Chen showed us something the simulations could not measure. He showed us that humans think differently. They approach problems from angles we do not expect. They find strength in unity with those different from themselves. They refuse to accept that limitations are permanent. Marcus Chen stepped forward slightly, and Kes gestured for him to speak. I mean no disrespect to your civilization, Marcus said, his voice respectful but firm. Your achievements are remarkable. But I have observed something during my time here. Your people believe that because you have always won, you will always win. That belief is a weakness. It blinds you to threats you do not expect. It prevents you from developing new ways of thinking. And you suggest we adopt human ways? Zal asked, his tone dripping with contempt. We should become like you. Fragile, short-lived, primitive? No, Marcus replied calmly. I suggest you add human perspectives to your Valorian strengths. You have superior intellect and technology. Humans have adaptability and resilience. Together, those strengths become something neither species could achieve alone. The chamber erupted in debate. Some voices called for Marcus's immediate arrest. Others listened carefully to what Kes was saying. The princess waited for the noise to subside, then spoke again. I have made a decision, she announced. The Valorian Empire will enter into an alliance with humanity. We will share knowledge. We will work together on scientific advancement. We will establish trade and cultural exchanges, and most importantly, we will learn from each other. Commander Vex's skin darkened to almost black with rage. He stood, his voice thundering through the chamber. This is betrayal. This is surrender. You would have our great empire bow before primitives? I would have our empire evolve, Kes replied calmly. There is a difference between surrender and growth. We do not surrender our strength. We add to it. I cannot accept this, Vex declared. He turned to address the assembly directly. The princess has been corrupted by this human. She speaks of weakness, masquerading as wisdom. I call for a vote of no confidence. The empire needs a leader strong enough to maintain our superiority, not one foolish enough to seek partnership with inferiors. The chamber fell silent. What Vex had done was unprecedented. Challenging a ruling princess was a serious matter, one that could only be resolved through formal combat or a military coup. Several commanders stood with Vex, their loyalty shifting like sand in wind. For a moment, Cass seemed isolated. She was strong, but Vex was a war hero with decades of military experience. Her position seemed to crumble before her eyes. Then, something unexpected happened. The younger commanders, the ones who had watched the simulations with Marcus, stood as well. But they stood beside Kes, not against her. Taulus, the young commander who had questioned Marcus, stepped forward. "I have studied the human tactics," Taulus said, "and I have realized something important. We have been training for 300 years to defeat enemies who think like us, but humans think differently. That difference is not a weakness, it is a strength. If we reject this alliance, we reject the only opportunity to truly strengthen our civilization. You are fools." Vex spat. "All of you." But more and more commanders were standing now, choosing sides. The assembly was splitting before everyone's eyes. Kes realized that her words alone would not be enough. Vex was right. This would come down to power. "Commander Vex," Kes said, her voice calm, "you have called for my removal. Under our laws, this must be settled through trial by command. I accept your challenge." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Kes was strong, but she was not a warrior by training. Vex was a seasoned fighter who had defeated dozens of opponents. Marcus Chen stepped forward, his expression troubled. "Princess, you do not have to do this. We can—" "Yes, I do," Kes said firmly. "This must be settled, or the Empire will tear itself apart. This is how our people resolve fundamental disagreements." The trial by command took place 3 hours later in the arena. Kes faced Vex across an open space, both of them armed with energy staffs, the traditional weapons of Valorian combat. Vex moved with confidence born of experience. He struck with precision and power, but Kes had been studying human strategy. Instead of matching Vex's direct approach, she moved unpredictably. She used angles he did not expect. She sacrificed immediate advantages for long-term positioning. She fought not to defeat him through superior strength, but to exhaust him by making him work harder than necessary. It was a human strategy applied by a Valorian warrior. The battle lasted nearly an hour, unprecedented for a trial by command. Finally, exhausted and confused by Kes's unconventional approach, Vex made a mistake. He left himself open, and Kes struck him down cleanly. As Vex fell, the assembled Valorians understood what they had witnessed. Their princess had defeated a war hero, not by being stronger, but by thinking differently. She had used the very lessons Marcus had taught her. "The trial is complete," Kes declared, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "The alliance with humanity stands. Any who wish to challenge this decision may do so through formal channels. But know this, we will not return to the old ways. The Valorian Empire enters a new era today." As the crowd dispersed, some grumbling, but most nodding with acceptance, Marcus approached Kes. "You fought like a human," he observed quietly. Kes smiled, genuinely smiled, for perhaps the first time. "I fought like someone willing to learn. Your people have taught me well, Captain Chen." 6 months had passed since the trial by command. The orbital station, designated as Unity Station, hung between 2 stars, equally positioned between Valorian space and human territory. It was a monument to something neither civilization had ever attempted before. True partnership between 2 completely different species. Princess Kes stood at the observation deck, watching as human and Valorian vessels docked side by side. The sight still filled her with wonder. Where once her people would have seen only inferior beings, they now saw potential collaborators. The transformation had not been instant or easy, but it was real. Behind her, footsteps announced the arrival of Captain Marcus Chen. The human captain had become a permanent presence on Unity Station, serving as ambassador and advisor to the joint research teams that now worked on projects neither species could have accomplished alone. "The research division sent their latest report," Marcus said, handing Kes a data crystal. "The medical breakthrough they mentioned last week. It is complete." Kes activated the crystal, and holographic displays bloomed around her. The information showed a new treatment for a disease that had plagued humans for centuries. But it had not been developed by humans alone. Valorian genetic knowledge combined with human medical experience had created something revolutionary. "This will save millions of human lives," Kes observed. "And our scientists learn more about genetic adaptation from studying human resistance to disease than they have in a century of pure research," Marcus replied. "That is the real value of partnership, Princess. Neither of us alone could have achieved this epic." A younger Valorian officer approached them, his skin displaying patterns of excitement. "Princess, The message from the Deep Research Station has arrived. I think you will want to hear this in person. They moved to the communications chamber, where a holographic message began to play. It was from Dr. Lena, one of the lead scientists in the Joint Research Program. She stood in a laboratory filled with equipment that combined both human and Valorian technology. "We have made a discovery," Dr. Lena reported, her human face animated with excitement. "One of our joint research teams has identified a pattern in stellar radiation that could lead to a new form of clean energy. This discovery emerged from collaboration, human intuition, combined with Valorian computational power. Neither species would have found this alone." As the message continued, showing detailed scientific data, Cass felt something shift in her understanding once again. It was not just about military tactics or survival strategies anymore. It was about the very nature of advancement itself. "Come with me," Cass said to Marcus. "I want to show you something." They traveled to the historical records section of Unity Station, where Cass had created a new archive. It displayed not just human or Valorian history, but a combined chronology showing points where the two civilizations' developments had paralleled each other. "Look at this," Cass said, pointing to the displays. "For thousands of years, our civilizations developed independently. We both created advanced technology. We both built great societies. But look at the patterns." Marcus studied the information carefully. "Every major breakthrough in your civilization came after overcoming some challenge," he observed. "And every advancement in human civilization emerged from solving a survival problem." "Exactly," Cass confirmed. "We thought we had reached the peak of advancement because we faced no challenges. We believed that comfort and superiority meant progress. But we were wrong. True progress comes from struggle, adaptation, and the willingness to learn from different perspectives." A message alert chimed on Cass's personal communicator. It was from the Valorian homeworld, a summons from the Council of Elders. She and Marcus traveled back to the capital within hours. The council chamber was even more impressive than Cass remembered, with its soaring ceilings and ancient stones that had stood for 500 years. The Council of Elders sat in their traditional circle, their ancient faces showing no emotion. The eldest among them, Elder Miron, spoke first. "Princess Cass, we have gathered to discuss the future direction of our civilization. 6 months ago, we feared you had betrayed everything we stood for. Many of us still harbor those doubts." "Then why have you summoned me?" Cass asked respectfully. "Because the evidence speaks louder than our doubts," replied Elder Miron. "Our military has learned 17 new combat strategies from human military advisors. Our scientific output has increased by 40% in just 6 months. Our technological advancement is accelerating in directions we had never considered. Trade with human worlds has opened new economic opportunities, and our young people, they are more engaged, more curious, more passionate about learning than they have been in a century." The elder paused, his ancient eyes studying Cass carefully. "We came here prepared to limit your authority, to restrict the human alliance. Instead, we have come to understand that you were right. Our civilization was stagnant. The Salmo Station, we had become comfortable in our superiority. We had stopped growing." Another elder, Serinda, spoke up. "We have a proposal for you, Princess. We wish to expand the alliance, not just with humans, but with other species as well. We wish to create a federation based on the principle that different perspectives create stronger societies." Cass felt emotion rise in her chest, something Valorians rarely experienced. "You wish to transform our empire?" "We wish to evolve it," Elder Miron corrected. "An empire is about dominance. A federation is about cooperation. We believe the latter will create something far greater than the former." Over the following weeks, the transformation accelerated. The Valorian Empire officially became the Valorian Federation. Embassies were opened with species across the sector. Scientific exchanges became commonplace. Young Valorians traveled to human worlds to learn human approaches to problem solving. Young humans trained alongside Valorian warriors to understand strategic thinking. 1 year after Marcus Chen's initial arrival, Cass and Marcus stood together on the observation deck of Unity Station once again. But this time, they were not alone. Representatives from 12 different species gathered with them, celebrating the founding of the Galactic Cooperation Council, an organization dedicated to advancing all civilizations through shared knowledge and mutual respect. A young Valorian noble approached Kes with obvious skepticism in her expression. Princess, I do not understand this change. Our people were great. Why have we surrendered our dominance? Kes smiled gently. We have not surrendered anything, young one. We have gained everything. I once told Captain Chen that he would fail. I believe that humans, being weaker and less advanced, could never truly benefit us. I was measuring strength by the wrong standard. And Potter's pause to return to the gathering of different species working together. True strength is not about being the best at everything. True strength is about being willing to learn from others. True strength is about recognizing that diversity creates power. True strength is about understanding that survival, real, lasting survival, comes from cooperation, not conquest. Your species has taught me something as well, Princess. I came here believing that only those who struggle grow. But I have learned that growth also comes from humility, from being willing to admit that other perspectives hold value equal to your own. The young Valorian officer looked between the human and the princess, something shifting in her expression. So you were saying we became strong by admitting we were weak? I am saying we became truly strong by accepting that we were incomplete, Kes replied. No single species, no matter how advanced, possesses all the answers. But together, drawing on the strengths of many, we can achieve things none of us could imagine alone. As the celebration continued around them, with representatives from a dozen species sharing knowledge and experiences, Kes reflected on how much had changed. The girl who once dismissed humans as primitives now led a civilization transformed by partnership with them. And perhaps most remarkably, the Valorian Federation had discovered something they had never found in 300 years of conquest. Lasting peace, genuine progress, and the kind of strength that came not from dominance, but from unity. On that day, surrounded by the stars and the representatives of many worlds, Princess Kes finally understood the true meaning of the words she had spoken to Captain Marcus Chen months before. You'll fail, human, she had said. But he had not failed. Neither had she. Together, they had succeeded in something far greater. They had proven that the greatest strength comes not from being superior, but from being willing to change. And that was a lesson that would transform the galaxy for generations to come. The end.